Hello guys! Hey! Okay, today we're gonna talk about tea ceremony. I hope you like it. The Japanese tea ceremony, which they call it Sado or Chado, is a tradition which steeped into Japanese history many years ago. And actually, it's a ceremonial way of preparing and drinking green tea, typically in a traditional tea room with tatami floors. But beyond this serving and drinking green tea, there's a main purpose of this tea ceremony is that for the guests, in order to enjoy the hospitality of the hosts in an atmosphere distinct from the fast pace of everyday life. Today, the tea ceremony is practiced as a hobby, and there are so many places in Japan for tourists in order to experience it as well. Tea ceremony of various degrees of formality and authenticity is strongly offered by the organizations across Japan, which they include at some traditional gardens, culture centers, hotels. By the way, Kyoto and Uji are among the best destinations in the country in order to experience this tea culture of Japan. So I'm here to inform you about the history background about tea ceremony. Let's go! Tea was introduced to Japan in the 8th century from China, and it was drunk as a medicinal beverage, mainly among upper class. But it was not like this until the Muromachi period, which it was between 1333 to 1573, that the beverage gained popularity among people of all social classes. Among the affluent members of society, tea drinking parties became popular, in which their participants show off their exquisite tea bowls and display their knowledge about tea and tea drinking. Around the same time, a more refined version of tea parties developed with Zen-inspired simplicity and a greater emphasis on spirituality. It is from these gatherings that the tea ceremony has its origins. The father of the modern way of tea was Senno Rikyo, which he passed away in 1591, advocated austere and rustic way of simplicity. In most of the today's schools of tea ceremony, including Omotesenk and Urasenk, they're actually developed from his knowledge and from his teachings. Okay, so it's time to get to the tea ceremony procedures. A full formal tea ceremony is actually a multi-hour event which starts with a bowl of thick tea and it will end with the bowl of thin tea. But nowadays, tea ceremonies are actually most abbreviated and they're limited into the enjoyment of a bowl of thin tea just. So this is the difference between now and past days. The protocol of the tea ceremony is actually defined down to exact hand movements, which vary slightly between different schools of tea ceremony teachings. So in most cases, regular tourists are not actually expected to know the details or the rules of tea ceremony in detail, but it's good to know a basic knowledge about the tea ceremony, and it actually makes the event a more dignified affair. First one is dress code. Okay, you have to avoid gaudy fashion and fragrances because it actually distracts you from the tea experience. For example, you have to remove your jewelries because it may actually damage the tea equipments, or you have to avoid strong fragrances, you have to wear modest clothes. The traditional tea ceremony venue is actually surrounded with the gardens. As I told you before in my previous videos about Japan, that they do care about nature because they think that the nature has its own spirits, so we have to respect them. So in tea ceremonies, obviously, they do care about the garden, so the tea house totally is surrounded by the garden. Although many modern tea ceremonies lack a garden, but garden is actually really important. The garden is deliberately kept simple in order to encourage a calm spirit. For example, flowers with gaudy and loud colors or deep scents and smells are avoided because they're kind of distraction. Or the pathway to the tea stone is actually made up with different kinds of stones with different shapes and different sizes. A stone lantern is actually placed near to the stone basin for the visitors in the entrance of the tea house in order to wash their hands before entering to the tea house for the tea ceremony. The ceremony is traditionally held in a tatami room. The entrance of the tea room is sometimes kept low for the entering guests in order to bend over to enter the tea room. This is actually symbolizing the humility, not humility, but bending over is really important for Japanese people. It is a sign of respect to other people. Decorative elements in the tea room, for example, alcohol, which they call it tokonoma, where a scroll and seasonal flowers are displayed. After a bow, the head guest will enter to the tea room, and then other guests will follow him or her, and the head guest will take the closest seats near the alcohol, and other guests will idly sit in a seiza position on the tatami floor. And then after that, it is customary to bow once more before observing actually the decoration which were selected for the occasion. Finally, this is the time to prepare the tea, please. The host typically prepares the tea in front of the guests. The main tea equipments are the tea whisk, tea container for the powdered green tea, tea scoop, tea bowl, sweets container or a plate, just the kettle and a brazier. Each piece of equipment were selected carefully for the occasion, according to the circumstance, and has its own specific place. It's so interesting. I love it. Gosh, so finally enjoying the tea and bowl. A Japanese sweet is served before the tea and is supposed to be eaten before the tea is drunk. The tea bowl is placed in front of you on the tatami with its front facing you, and you're gonna pick it up with your right hand and you're gonna put it on your left hand palm, and then you're gonna turn it into 90 degrees, which is clockwise, which is actually this way. Yeah. When the front is not facing you anymore, then you're gonna drink it into a few sips, and you're gonna turn it back on the tatami, and after all, you're gonna bend or bow in order to express your feelings and respect actually for receiving and drinking the tea. Toward the end of the ceremony, there will be time in order to appreciate the tea bowl. So you're gonna lift it, and once you've finished, you're gonna turn the tea bowl to the host, which now it faces the host. And then after that, the host will ask you if you would like to start another round of tea. And if not, the ceremony is over and it's finished. So the host will actually wash the tea utensils and returns the equipments of tea to where they were before. So what is this whole tea ceremony thing about? In order to show us to spend more time with our loved ones, to respect them. The guests are really important. For example, when someone comes to your house, they're gonna be affected by your negative and positive energies. So, for example, you're gonna say hi in a hurry and you're gonna say goodbye right away. Spend more some time with each other in order to get your feelings, in order to share your good feelings, make yourselves calm with these kind of ceremonies. So be slower and actually express more peace to other people's, especially your loved ones. So if you like it, please give me a thumbs up and don't forget to subscribe. Thank you so much for watching me. Thank you so much. ありがとうございません。いい一日を。